Okay, so some news that's been breaking over the last few hours coming out of the US is that O.J. Simpson has passed away aged 76. He'd been battling prostate cancer. It was announced in February that he was undergoing treatment for prostate cancer. But we can't talk about O.J. Simpson without talking about the murders of his ex-wife Nicole Brown and her friend Ron Goldman, and then the car chase in the Ford Bronco across LA. The day before the World Cup in the US in '94 was about to kick off, and the Houston Rockets were playing an NBA Finals game, I believe, against the Lakers, and they literally cut the broadcast at about 6 minutes and 30 odd seconds remaining in the second quarter to go literally to the helicopter cameras and the car chase across LA in that Ford Bronco for 90 minutes. Subsequently, he was found not guilty, obviously very famously. And then later on in life, there was a civil lawsuit from the families of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. I believe that was settled out of court or settled in court on a civil suit. And then he got convicted of armed robbery in 2008. He was sentenced to 33 years. He was released after 9 in 2017, and he'd been out of prison since 2017. So a lot going on here, a lot to unpick. So in the NFL, he played for 10 years between 1969 and 1979. Most of his career was spent with the Buffalo Bills before he finished his career at the San Francisco 49ers. He rushed for over 11,000 yards. He's in the Hall of Fame, and he was nicknamed, obviously, The Juice. He was also doing some acting before he was in the NFL, and whilst he was in the NFL, but then he converted to full-time acting, coming to fame, obviously, with the Naked Gun franchise, where he starred alongside Leslie Nielsen and Priscilla Presley, and made a lot of money out of that, became a household name to non-NFL fans, and he was beloved by the American public at the time. And then in June 1994, his ex-wife Nicole Brown and her friend Ron Goldman were found dead at her home. And then the day before the World Cup started, on June the 17th, during the NBA Finals series involving the Houston Rockets, and I believe it was the LA Lakers, the car chase happens. And then the subsequent trial where Jimmy Coughlin and the father of the Kardashian children, Mr. Kardashian, were his defence team, very famously took place. And of course you have If the Glove Fits, that, the hands up and the glove and all that. And then the subsequent acquittal. At trial, he was found not guilty by a jury, and he was acquitted of the charges of murder, and that transfixed the US. It shut down everything. Literally, it was the most watched thing almost of all time. I think 57% of the population of the US watched the car chase or the trial. It depends on what you read. Over 150 million people watched the trial at points, and about 150 million people actually watched the car chase. So it really transfixed not only the US, but it also became a big thing over here. This is the early days of the 24-hour news cycle and satellite TV, and everything stopped for that period of time. Subsequently, he was found guilty of armed robbery in 2008 in Las Vegas. He was sentenced to 33 years for armed robbery. He served 9. He was released in 2017. He's been controversial on Twitter since his release in 2017. But before his armed robbery conviction, he did briefly try and resurrect his media career with his own program called Juice, which was like a prank show where he would prank members of the public. It was a commercial flop. He lost a lot of money. The civil lawsuit and his other issues led to basically bankruptcy, which ultimately led to him committing armed robbery and ultimately led to his conviction. He still divides opinion today. He was a beloved figure in American society before the car chase and the murder trial, and it still divides opinion today. Did he actually do it? I mean, he did release a book, If I Did Do It. Whoever advised him to do that was ridiculous, but a lot of people say, where were you that day of the car chase? Where were you the day of the acquittal? And it was a big part of 90s pop culture. It's still referenced today in films and on TV. It's still referenced, programs like Family Guy, American Dads, South Park have all made tongue-in-cheek references to the car chase and his subsequent armed robbery conviction, and also the trial for murder that he was acquitted for. But his career never recovered. He became very controversial following his acquittal and the trial surrounding the murders of Nicole Brown, his ex-wife, and her friend Ron Goldman, who worked at a local restaurant in the area in LA where they lived. I mean, a lot to unpick here, but he announced in February that he was undergoing treatment for prostate cancer, and he's passed away today. So it's been announced today that he has passed away aged 76. He's lost his battle with cancer. But a lot of what he did in the NFL and his acting in like the Naked Gun series and other films has been completely forgotten because of that famous trial, and then ultimately his trial for armed robbery and conviction for armed robbery. So, it's one of those iconic moments in pop culture, in society, and as I say, the figures of the car chase and the trial, the viewing figures in the US alone are staggering. One of the most viewed things of all time on TV, bearing in mind the NBA final series the Houston Rockets were playing. This is before social media. Mobile phones were not rare, but they weren't as common as not everyone had a mobile phone. People would have been inside that arena or watching at home, watching the NBA finals, not knowing of the car chase. And then suddenly NBC switched from their live sports broadcast to their news affiliate, and then suddenly every news station, every TV station in the US started focusing on the car chase, and then 24-hour news, the satellite news stations around the world and other news stations on terrestrial TV around the world suddenly switched programming, and we're watching a car chase across LA. It's a very vivid memory that I have as a kid when I was like 4 or 5 years old, watching the car chase and then ultimately the trial. That was a big thing. And it's still, all these years later, nearly 30 years later, spoken about today. He's still controversial today, and all that goodwill he had, and he was a very popular figure before all that, quickly evaporated. He became very, very controversial. There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there and discussion around what happened the night Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, his ex-wife, and their family friend, what happened there. And then obviously, the famous if the glove fits moment where he puts the glove on like that. Well, that really is an iconic moment. There's been docudrama. There was a docudrama series done about the O.J. Simpson trial a few years ago, which was really, that was a fantastic docudrama series, focused more on the prosecution side, and that got rave reviews, massive viewership, and it's still a controversial talking point today. But there's the news that is O.J. Simpson has passed away at age 76. I mean, what were you doing the day of the car chase? Were you even alive at the time of the car chase? I was only a kid, but I remember it very, very vividly because the World Cup in the US in '94 was due to start the next day. The opening ceremony was literally 12 hours away. That is the time frame. The world's media were already in America for the World Cup, and that was a big, big moment. So there's a lot of international media already in LA. There was a lot of international media already in the US, and suddenly every major news outlet around the world was covering the O.J. Simpson story, and then it just blew up. The trial and the aftermath has transfixed generations of people for the last 30 years. But I'm going to leave that there. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts on O.J. Simpson, the juice, in the comments section below. What were you doing the day of the car chase, and what were you doing the day of the acquittal when the trial ended and he was found not guilty? What were you doing those days? I would love to hear from you guys what you were doing at that moment. But for me, for now, thank you very much for watching. I will do a O.J. Simpson, a more in-depth video on O.J. Simpson in due course, maybe on the other channel, the History Buffing, but I could do it on this channel, on the sporting side of things. But for me, for now, thank you very much for watching. I will have some more content for you guys and girls very, very soon.